The hour being 7 p.m. on Monday, June 14th, 2021. I'd like to call to order the Laconia City Council meeting. It's great to be back all together in person once again. So prior to beginning, should I give the Zoom meeting for those that maybe, do we have anybody on Zoom? Do we know? Oh, terrific. So they don't need to know the webinar ID, but they probably already got the webinar ID and the password.
Well, I think if they're not watching you on Zoom, then they can't get to the password if you're giving it to them. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. It is
Zoom. True.
If they're not already on, you're not going to help them. It was posted with the agenda and stuff, so anybody looking for it could have found it there.
Let's get right into it then. So now that we've called to order, I'd ask Councilor Felch to lead us in the salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilor Felch. Joined at the council table this evening is City Clerk Cheryl Hebert, City Manager Scott Myers, and City Finance Director Glenn Smith is also joining us. Before we go any farther, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilor Cheney.
Here.
Councilor Susie.
Here.
Councilor Littman.
Here.
Councilor Haynes.
Here.
Councilor Hamel.
Here.
Councilor Felch.
Here.
Mayor Hosmer.
Present. Didn't skip it this time, Cheryl, did I?
Oh, good job.
Nailed it. So moving right along on the agenda to number 7, which is acceptance of minutes from previous meetings. Couple items here with the budget meeting minutes of May 24th, 2021. Minutes of the meeting were distributed to the City Council on Tuesday, May 25th, 2021, with no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk. The minutes will be accepted as distributed. 7B, which is the regular meeting minutes of May 24th, 2021. Minutes of the meeting were distributed to the City Council on Tuesday, May 25th, 2021, with no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk. The minutes will be accepted as distributed. And on to 7C, which is the budget meeting minutes of June 7th, 2021. The minutes of this meeting were distributed to the City Council on Thursday, June 10th, with no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk. The minutes will be accepted as distributed. Moving along to item number 9. This is citizens' comments for matters not on the agenda. I don't know if someone will join us by Zoom. I guess I'll look to you, Mr. Smith, if someone raises his or her hand. And anybody in the audience tonight, if there's a matter that's not on tonight's agenda that you would like to speak to, now would be the appropriate time. Welcome, Mr. Burnett. How are you?
I am well, Your Honor. Thank you very much. I thought I'd give you guys a quick update about this game of King of the Hill we're playing here in Lakeport Square. You might have noticed an incredibly large hole immediately to the south of me. BPS has got the site pretty well stabilized. You see, they had to drive steel piles in along Elm Street and Park Street to keep the streets from literally subsiding into the hole. It would seem that my house is situated up top, about a 50-foot hill of glacial sand left over from the last ice age. So they hadn't planned on having to do so much cribbing. The pile driver that does it is crane operated, and I can tell you when they did the 100+ feet that they have already done, it shook all the houses in the neighborhood like an earthquake. It's having quite a bit more impact, I think, than many of us thought it was going to be. They've also expanded the building from the original plan. Originally, it was going to be 2 buildings joined by a pedestrian bridge. One building would front along Elm Street, The other would be adjacent to my property, and it's a 2-level parking garage with 1 level below grade. The entrance to that parking garage would be on Railroad Avenue, and the entrance to the upper level would be off Park Street, adjacent to me. And of course, the plans all include improvements to sidewalks and all that other stuff. The only thing I would like to say is that when this project is done, I would hope that there'd be some funds available to pave the streets in the neighborhood. They are being pounded to crap every single day. And it's not just the truck traffic from the construction site. There's some really heavy vehicles that are being used in the marina business now up here. And the streets are in deplorable condition. Other than that, I have to say that things are all right. I'm having a little dispute with them right now, but that's not anything that the council needs to know about. I guess what I'm trying to get at is that the developer, Scott Everett, is a guy that's quick to pivot and come up with a solution to problems when they're brought to him. Hence the last minute addition of the storefronts along Railroad Avenue after the acquisition of the restaurant, the CJ Avery's, which my parents sold to Chuck, I can't believe it, 37 years ago. So anyway, thank you for listening to me. If you want any more information, if you get any constituent questions or anything, you might as well give me a call, because not a thing goes by next door that I'm not immediately aware of. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett. Nice to hear from you, and we'll certainly make note of it. Councilor Cheney.
Peter, have arrangements been made to stabilize the bell in the church belfry?
I don't know what discussions have occurred subsequent to the last meeting. I think the church needs more repairs than they can afford. That is ultimately the problem. You may have noticed anybody that's looked carefully that a paint job was started and finished because allegedly someone took a deposit, put some primer up, and ran off a couple of years ago. Yes, the belfry is leaning about 6 inches to the east. And that bell weighs close to 1,000 pounds. So there have been some preliminary discussions when the crane comes back to the site that maybe they could, hook onto the bell, but that's ridiculous because you'd have to come up with some way to get the bell horizontally out of the belfry and then, suspend it and drop it to the ground. So I don't know what's going to happen, but you can't imagine what it's like. That the next line of cribbing that they are talking about driving in, 30-foot steel plates, is going to be right along my property line. And just what they did was knocking things off the walls and the shelves in my house, covered the whole neighborhood in dirt. Those kind of vibrations that much closer to the church, I think, could be catastrophic. And there's not much, of course, anyone can do without a significant bit of fundraising for the members of the church. So I don't know what they can do to stabilize it. I know an engineer that was up there recently said that over the years, people have tried to brace it with nails and 2x4s. But, it's a post and beam structure, and the top 3 segments are leaning. So that's another resource we have to assist. I think they have applied for and may have gotten some grant money. So I'll keep you posted on that. And thanks for asking, Councilor Cheney.
Councilor Susie.
This question probably is more for Scott or Wes. I see is here in the room. Is there something we should do about load limits as far as weight in some of those streets?
We have already addressed that with one of the major property owners down there who now is traveling a further distance with boats in the new building than they were with the existing building. So it's something we're already on record with.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Councilor Hamel.
I think this is for Scott also. I drove that not long ago and down Raven Avenue and then turned left. The road is terrible, but there's some significant potholes. If those at least could be filled, I think it would make life a little bit better for people who live around there. We're not looking to have the road paved or nothing, but just fill the potholes. Some are pretty deep.
I'll put it on my list. We'll make sure it's addressed.
Thank you, Councilor Hamel. Mr. Burnett, I think we're finished with, are you finished? I guess my question should be.
I am, and thank you very much for the suggestions from the council. Yeah, there's some, the road is delaminated in about 3 or 4 places, and some of them are quite deep. So, and we're not expecting a paving job, but I'm suggesting that when this construction is done, we should probably think about that. I don't know the last time they've been paved. I can just say that we have owned this property since 1980. The roads have not been repaved in that period of time.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
Any other citizen comments for items not on tonight's agenda?
I tell you, no hands already. Somebody's gonna raise their hand.
Seeing none, let's move on to item number 10.
I put my hand down.
Turn your microphone off. But interviews. So under 10A, we have Joseph Driscoll III seeking reappointment to a regular member position on the Water Commission for a 3-year term expiring at the end of June 2024. Welcome, Joe, and maybe just give us an idea of why you'd like to be reappointed to a 3-year term.
Well, I just concluded my 7th year on the commission and I haven't had enough. It's a great department. We've got great employees. Everybody's very motivated. And there's a lot going on with water and the city and all of these new projects with the streets. And it's engaging work. Certainly one of our most important things is our fire protection component. And that's going on. The way the department handled the COVID era was flawless. I mean, it was amazing because the other commissioners, Denny and Brian and I, were thinking we're going to be down there pumping stuff. Anything goes through there, but everybody negotiated it well. It's a very dedicated workforce, and I am very happy to be involved and would like to continue to be.
Thanks very much, Joe. Certainly in the presentation from Ben Crawford on the budget proposal for the next fiscal year, you have had a very good year.
Oh, it was good. And it's all about pumping the water.
Yeah.
It's all about that. And we pumped a lot. And so we're in the black. We're doing very well. You never know.
No, that's good. Well, having had the pleasure to serve on that commission as liaison, it's a superb commission doing a lot of great work. I know Councilor Susi is there now, and I think it's still in just great hands. So any questions for Joe Driscoll tonight or any feedback? Councilor Hamel.
No questions. Just want to say thank you, Joe, for stepping forward again.
Oh, hey, my pleasure. Believe me.
Absolutely, Councilor Susi.
Again, also, thanks, Joe, very much for doing what you're doing. I think it's awesome. I also want to bring to the council's attention, one of the challenges they have is that when everybody's building new homes today, everything's being plumbed as far as saving water. So every time you flush, you use less water, and every time, and at the same time, the department's been able to supply all the water and keep it under control. So the pricing, so you're not seeing rates raising, even though the water consumption per capita is going down, which is a great feat.
Just amazing. It's still doing that. You know, it's still what a point and a half a year,
right,
in decline, even with all the building and everything. So I'm sure it's good. Everybody's more efficient, but we like pumping water.
Thanks, Joe. And this goes for all people interviewing tonight. Interviews are this evening and appointments will be made at the council's June 28th, 2021 meeting. So thanks very much.
Very good. Thank you all.
Moving right along to 10B, Russell Poirier seeking reappointment as a regular member of the Weirs TIF District Advisory Board to a 3-year term expiring at the end of June 2024. Welcome, Russ. Nice to have you.
Thank you.
perhaps letting us know why you would like to be reappointed.
Well, I've been on the TIF committee since its inception at the Weirs Beach. I love Weirs Beach. Was happy to be a part of development of Riverside Ave and Riverside Street and Lakeside Street. And a lot of things on the agenda with the expansion of the beach and reconfiguration perhaps of the docking system. It's an exciting place, an exciting position to be able to vote on these type of things.
Thanks, Russ. I think anybody that went to Weirs Beach 10 or 15 years ago and comes down here for the first time in a decade will see a tremendous improvement, right, and beautification of the whole
Absolutely,
area.
yeah.
So,
I think it's just the beginning.
yeah, it's been a great team throughout the city, each doing his and her part. So, any questions for Russ?
Thank
Seeing-
you, Russ.
Thank you very much. So,
Yep, thank you.
moving along to item number 10C, we have Peter Burnett seeking reappointment as a regular member of the Lakeport TIF District Advisory Board to a 3-year term expiring at the end of June 2024. Welcome again, Mr. Burnett.
Hello. Thank you, Your
Hello.
Honor.
Good to have
Yes,
you. Maybe just check in with us as to why you'd like to be reappointed.
Well, there hasn't been a meeting since I've been on this committee. And I'm not sure, but I might be the only, if appointed, reappointed, might be the only member. I've talked with several other people that are interested. But I think it would be nice to have it as and certainly a way to encourage, support, sort of a develop or come up with a development attitude about the square. So it seemed important at the time. It remains important, but nothing's come up, shall we say, since I've been on the committee with my friend across the river, Peter Stewart. So I don't know if he's up or if these are staggered. These are probably staggered like the school board, so, and the planning board.
Thanks, Peter. Any questions from members of the council? Seeing none, thank you for your application. And as you know, appointments will be made at the June 28, 2021 council meeting. Stand by. Moving on to 10D, Peter Burnett seeking reappointment as a regular member of the planning board to a 3-year term expiring at the end of June 2024. So
You're not giving me much time for costume changes between scenes, you know.
thankfully, it's just audio today, so we can use our
Oh,
imagination.
well, and I wouldn't have even put clothes on. My goodness.
Jeez. Why don't we pull the plug on that one now, Mr. Smith? But no, I would imagine you're in a Grateful Dead tie-dye T-shirt. That's my hunch. So
Actually, I'm wearing a T-shirt emblazoned with the cover of the Yes album Fragile from 1973. Before you were born, Your Honor. So anyway,
I wish.
there are some nice, there's some good things, some exciting things. We have an excellent board. It's getting better. There's been trainings that the Municipal Government Center puts on that our newcomers have been attending, probably more than I. We are looking into a more comprehensive, shall we say, approach to the master plan. I don't know, but I think we are. Are there any members of the council that are on the steering committee? Yeah, okay. We could probably use another on the master plan steering committee, and I'm gonna get together with Dean and try to get that scheduled as soon as possible. I've always said this about Laconia. It's like we've never quite figured out what we want to be when we grow up. And whenever we move in one direction, we don't always go all the way there. So I can tell you right now that recreation tourism is something you're going to hear a lot about. It requires infrastructure improvements, infrastructure. And I know that stuff is expensive. I've served on the budget, not the budget committee, but the committee that hears all the departmental reports. And there's only so much money to go around, and we're a tax cap city. I get that. But I think that investment in improved infrastructure, especially that which would benefit the or attract so-called recreation tourism, would be a very good thing, and something that we need to look for. So, as I said, it's been a pleasure. The last 3 years, I'd like to take another stab at it and see what we can do going forward from here. And I'm prepared to answer any questions that anyone might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Cheney has a question.
It's not a question, it's a comment, Mr. Mayor. Having served on the planning board for the last year, a little over a year, I think, I want to highly recommend the reappointment of Peter Burnett. It's easy to be a good steward of a board or a commission. I think Peter is an outstanding steward. He's fair with applicants. He makes sure everyone gets an opportunity to speak, and that's sometimes a rare quality. I can't strongly enough support his reappointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Counselor Cheney. Counselor Felch.
Yes, and I agree with Counselor Cheney. And I just want to say thank you for everything you do, Peter.
Well, that goes to all of you too. I also want to just take a moment, if I can, to give praise to our recently departed Vice Chair, Ed Bones. He, in true humble style, just kind of quietly didn't renew. And suddenly we had a planning board meeting and he wasn't there. We didn't even get to, put a funny hat on him and take pictures and stuff that we can blackmail him with later. So I'd like to, at this moment, for the first time, publicly thank Edwin Bones for having served as the vice chair of the planning board for the last 3 years. And I believe he was on the planning board several years before I came back on board. So, and thank you for your time. He's a good man. And he was a lot of, well, during COVID, when I was sick, I mean, he ran the ship, you know what I mean? He chaired all the meetings. We couldn't have done it without him and our excellent planning staff.
Thank you very much, Peter. Any further questions or feedback for Mr. Burnett? Seeing none, thanks again.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Moving on to item number 10E, we have Scott McWilliams seeking appointment as an alternate member of the planning board to a 3-year term expiring at the end of June 2024. Welcome, Mr. McWilliam, and introduce yourself and let us know why you think you'd like to serve.
Well, I've always been civic minded. I'm looking for a way to get involved in government. I've moved here not that long ago, so I'm a fairly new resident, but I'm in love with the town. I enjoy walking around with my dog just about every day, and I, see things, and my mind starts turning, and I start thinking, I wish I had a voice in the way things are moving along. In some cases, I like what I see. In other cases, I wish I had an opportunity to have some input. So I'm looking for a way to get involved in the community, basically. And I thought, being an alternate member, I could be more of an observer, I think. My understanding is, as an alternate member, I fill in for a regular member who is unable to attend the meeting. So give me a chance to be an observer and get to know some folks that are involved. And so that's my motivation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for your raising your hand, being willing to serve. Also, I see on your application, really congratulations for 2 career highlights in my mind. One being a 28-year high school teacher, recently
right.
retired,
Yeah.
as well as a 4-year Marine Corps veteran.
That's
So
right.
thank you
Yeah.
on both fronts.
Welcome.
Looking to my colleagues here at the council table, any questions? Yes, Counselor Hamel.
Scott, have you attended or on Zoom or anything like that, any of the planning board meetings at all? And also my other question would be, I don't know where you were from, but have you had any experience with the planning boards where you came from?
I do not have any experience from where I came from. I came from a kind of a larger city. It was easy to be anonymous and, defer to others to make the decisions. But this is a new kind of chapter in my life, and I feel like it's my time to step up and be a voice. Your other question was.
Have you attended?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
Or via Zoom or anything?
I'm.
To try and learn something about it?
I've read the minutes. I haven't attended via Zoom. I'm not sure how all that technology works, so I was really glad that this meeting was going to be in person.
Right there. That takes care of it all.
That was the only, but I have gone to the website numerous times and read agendas and minutes and so on.
Okay, you have time to attend the meetings and all that good
Yes,
stuff?
sir.
Thank you. Thanks
I
for
can
stepping
assure my
forward.
colleague that anybody that spent time at Paris Island can learn quickly.
Exactly.
You bet. 11 weeks. It was,
Semper Fi.
you never forget it.
All right, any other questions? So, Mr. McWilliam, excuse me, thank you for your willingness to serve, and we'll be making appointments at our next meeting of
Yeah.
this month.
Okay, thank you for
Terrific,
the
thanks.
opportunity. Thank you.
Moving right along to number 10F on your agenda, which is Stacy Susi. Welcome. Seeking reappointment as an alternate member of the planning board to a 3-year term expiring at the end of June 2024. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'd like to introduce yourself to those who may not know who you are, and let us know why you'd like to serve.
Stacy Susi, and I've been on the board for a year now, and I would actually like to be considered as a regular member. The app, I think, says alternate, and I've had some conversations, and if you don't mind changing that.
I'm happy to change it here. So Stacy, for the record, Stacy Susi seeking appointment as a regular member of the planning board to a 3-year term expiring June 2024.
And I've been studying the master plan because I also got drafted onto the master steering plan committee. So studying away.
Well, terrific. Thanks for being willing to serve. Any questions or any feedback for Councilor Cheney?
Having served on a planning board as the council's representative, I can also highly recommend Ms. Susi, who participates and is always there when we need an alternate. I don't think she's missed an opportunity. So I would highly recommend her for appointment to the regular full-time appointment.
A lot of recommendations tonight, Councilor Cheney. It's great.
It's out of character, sir, but I'm trying.
Anyway, that's high praise, certainly. So any other questions or feedback? Seeing none, as you heard me say earlier, we'll be making appointments on our June 28th, 2021 meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy.
And for the record, not that it's important tonight or necessarily germane, but certainly Councilor Susi had indicated that he would be abstaining himself from any consideration, discussions, and the vote at the next meeting. Moving along to item number 13, which is public hearings. This is a public hearing for budget resolutions 2021-08, 2021-09, 2021-10, 2021-11, 2021-12, and 2021-13, relative to making appropriations for the general fund, anticipated grants, enterprise funds, internal service fund, special revenue funds, and tax increment financing funds for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and terminating June 30th, 2022. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the May 28th, 2021 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun and posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Public Library, Community Center, and the SAU. The fiscal impact notation is this proposed budget includes estimated revenues and expenditures for each of the city funds and the estimated tax rate for the general fund. Our city manager, Scott Myers, recommends that the city council accept the budget as presented. This report before me was submitted by Glenn Smith, the finance director. So I'll be looking, my proposed motion would be open to the public hearing at 7:30 PM. And anyone wishing to speak will have an opportunity to do so now. You sure? You were looking to throw out another recommendation?
No. I'm starting to get hot flashes from
So the public hearing is still open.
Where are you going?
That was a lot of
I'm not
information.
that Somebody get him a cup of water.
Don't jump out the window.
I won't.
Oh,
Thank you.
thought I'd driven him. I really wanted to meet in person.
I did.
It's working. It's the temperature outside is only bringing in fresh air because it's cooler than the AC.
I'm Cheryl Cole. So it's going out the
No.
window.
Getting a little warm. All right. I'd like to close the public hearing at 7:32 PM. Moving right along to item number 15, which is the mayor's report. I guess I really would only like to talk about one thing this evening. As most people know, it's the 98th annual Laconia Motorcycle Week Rally, which is the oldest motorcycle rally in the entire world. City manager and I had an opportunity, along with the governor, to kick off the rally last Thursday at Laconia Motor Speedway. I'll just sort of echo some of the things that we both spoke of then. Certainly, I think we're all very optimistic with the numbers. I know we were sort of cautious and people wanted us to move a little faster than perhaps we did. Some did. But I think the numbers are still trending certainly in a positive direction when it comes to where we are with vaccinations and the virus as a whole. So it's really thrilling to get down to the Weirs where I had visited each day this weekend and see the crowds, see the enthusiasm, certainly see a smile on business owners' faces there as things start to pick up and we start to get back to something that's a little closer to what we're used to when it comes to Motorcycle Week. So we're excited about that. And I also want to, mention Charlie St. Clair and Jennifer Anderson. And as we all know, who know Charlie and Jennifer, and we see them on a year-round basis, their heart and soul is put into this rally every single year. They're working, the previous 11 and a half months to get this where it needs to be so they can have a successful rally. And the fact that they overcame the Christmas Day fire, which destroyed so much of personal memorabilia and personal belongings associated with the rally. What they've done to get up and ready and kick this off in fine fashion is certainly extraordinary. I think they're always looking to do something a little extra, and I'm not surprised by this necessarily, but Charlie and Jennifer at the last minute organized a vaccine station prior to the Peter Macris ride on Saturday. And they had National Guard in the city and dispensing vaccines to people who wanted them, which is just, it's about their concern. It's not all about the business end of this. It's about the well-being of folks that they're willing to put the extra effort in and get people here to offer vaccines. So I just want to say to both of them and to all the businesses who really had a great deal of patience with the city council and city manager and the folks that are in charge of putting this together. Thank you for your patience. I hope it's rewarded enormously this week, and congratulations and thank you to Charlie and Jennifer as we kick off what I think is going to be a banner 98th year. And we'll build momentum for the 100th, which is just as exciting. So that would conclude my comments this evening, and I'd look to my colleagues here at the council table for item number 16, which is council comments. Councilor Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Scott, the sign, the entrance to Court Street looks wonderful. I only have one concern. Can we cut the grass so we can see it?
Yeah, the challenge there, Counselor, and I agree with you. I've driven by. I know we got our plant allotment in at last week some point, and they got out there and did that. You know, that's all private property, so to really be getting out. I know they mowed a circular area in front of the sign, you know, but it's quite a lot. Can we do a little bit more there to make it a little bit more noticeable? I think we can, but again, that's all on private property that we just got an agreement to have the sign there and stuff, so we just got to be a little careful. But I think we can probably bring that down to the street line a little bit more.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Mayor, just one other thing. Scott, I've gotten a number of complaints about people making a right-hand turn when the crosswalk light is on Court Street. And the same thing is true from South Main onto Union Avenue. I guess people are under the impression if there's nobody on the crosswalk, you can make a turn. And I've been told otherwise, that if it says no turn, it means no turn. So could you speak to Matt and see if we could do a little better enforcement? And I guess from what I was told, it's really that 3:30 to 5 o'clock traffic rush that where all this happens.
Yes, I can make sure we address that. I think what some people do is they see the person who pushed the button cross and gets across, and because we've allocated some extra time, I think it's human nature to say, okay, the person crossed, and you look and you don't see it. And I'm not saying it's an obscure motor vehicle law, but I think some people are unaware that you can't cross when the signals are on. And now that we've got the more advanced and pronounced signals, it's should be no excuse. But I think that's one of those things we need a little bit of education. But I definitely see it as well, and we'll pass it along to Chief Canfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Hamel.
A couple things. I've had some complaints from some constituents up on Lafayette Street.
A little closer.
I've had some complaints about with some constituents on Lafayette Street about the greenage there and the spraying of the grass seed. That basically, and some sent me some pictures of stuff that basically all it's growing right now is weeds or nothing at all. So I don't know how that can be addressed. You know, I don't know what the low bid is on what the quality of grass that's put down or whatever, but I'd like to see Public Works go back up there and reassess the situation and see if there's anything that can be done. Maybe there isn't anything, but at least go back up and take a look.
So that is a problem area, and
They did stake it out to keep people off.
And
of
I know
that,
we've
which is-
gone up several times. We did it last fall, and I think we've gone twice this spring. And I think the reality is without regular watering, which is basically impossible, that's what's going to happen. And I know we spent a fair amount of resources. I actually drove it a couple of weeks ago after Councilor Felch said, hey, it wasn't staked. And now there's one or two properties that have tire ruts. So we went back out again. We fixed the ruts that, I'm not sure if it was owners or other visitors or just cars in general who drove on it, and the whole street got staked. But I mean, we've been in drought conditions forever, and without some regular rain, it would really be great in situations like that if, property owners could go out and just hit it with a hose once in a while, because I don't have a great solution to get out there and water every second or third day.
No, I understand that.
On that. So, and I can tell you, we probably have been out there 3 times working on those same stretches. So I don't want to sit here tonight and say we're going to promise more resources to go out again, especially coming into the heat of the summer.
Okay. Okay, I agree with you.
I have seen a few neighbors there who have taken the time to put some water on, and it's very noticeable which ones,
Well, yeah.
which ones have. So a
I got phone
little bit of help would be great
Yeah,
in some
they
of
went
those
out and bought their
situations.
own lawn seed and redid it. But anyway, another thing that I'd like to bring up is bicycles riding on the sidewalks. I think we've all seen a large increase in people with bicycles, and a lot of them are riding them on the sidewalks. A lot of them are electrical now, and they can go pretty fast. I've seen them go down Court Street and they keep up with the traffic basically. But one situation I noticed, particularly with my time invested downtown over the last year or so, is those electrical bikes going down the sidewalks on Main Street and people coming out like out of the Wayfarer. I've seen two people, one of them was a fireman, almost got clipped. I mean, this bike went by doing at least 10 miles an hour and people are not expecting that on the sidewalks, and they walk out of the door and there they go by. So I know the rules of the road for bicycles is the same. It's been for a long, long time, is they observe the same rules as a motor vehicle. You ride the proper lanes, you stop at stop signs, stop lights, the whole deal. And you're not supposed to be on the sidewalk.
We'll certainly address that with Chief Canfield as well. I know we've got a dedicated downtown presence now, sometimes on foot, sometimes on bike. And we'll make sure that we address that. I've seen that, just anecdotally, I following up what you said of, sometimes you see the folks who ride very seriously for exercise. They're not on the sidewalks necessarily, but they're the ones who are not stopping at stop signs and running the red lights as well, because they're looking to keep their pace going. It's not just always the casual recreational rider, but I agree with you 100%. And we'll land that on his screen as well. And,
I think we can all have some judgment on this where, you got little kids that shouldn't be in the road or whatever, but it needs to be addressed, I think. And one last thing is we had Memorial Day services up at the Veterans Square a little over a week ago now. And the mayor did a wonderful speech for a young local man, Jonathan Farmer, who passed away in Syria on January 16th, 2019. And I want to commend you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other council comments? Councilor Littman.
When we were at the Memorial Day ceremony walking away, we noticed some things and appreciate with respect to behind the train station. I see that coming to the council meeting tonight, some activities made it look better there. Thank you for that work.
We will continue to stay on that.
And I do have one more thing.
Yes.
Let's see, this is June 24th. I think you all received an invitation for the bicycle rail cars that are going to be dedicated at 1 o'clock on Thursday. So if you'd like to show up dressed to ride. The owner, Ben Clark, said he'd let the council take some bicycle cars out and we can pedal for a while. I'm going to be in the back coasting, so I want some good guys in the front seat. It's quite a thing for him to bring this to Laconia. I've had conversations with him for almost 2 years now about this, and called me up one day and said, "What do you think of this?" And I said, "I think it'd be a great idea." So it's here. He's invested a lot of money, and I hope it'll be very successful. But please turn out for that. I think it'll be a great time and a great new attraction for Laconia. As one of the, I think it was Peter that brought up about investing in infrastructure and things like that for attractions, and this is just another one that we can add along with the Colonial and that there. So it'd be a good thing.
Thank you, Councilor Hamel. Seeing no other requests for council comments, move along to committee reports. Are there any committee reports this evening? Councilor Haynes.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a report, but I just want to make people aware that Wes Anderson has informed me that he does have the figures in reference to solid waste, so I'll be polling the members of the committee to have a meeting in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. Any other committee reports? Liaison reports? Seeing none, I'd like to move along to item number 19, which is citizens' requests to comment on current agenda items. Would you like to be recognized? Come on up. Welcome, Tara.
Good evening, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well today.
We're doing well. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks.
Good.
So I'm sure you all understand why I'm standing here today. You do see that you have a request for an extension of the current historic district that you'll be speaking a little bit about today. So yes, I am here again to give you as much information as I possibly can about the benefits of a historic district for Laconia. And you've heard it all, but I'm certainly happy to give you some of the highlights again. First and foremost, and I've had the chance to speak with a couple of our business owners here in downtown just off the cuff. And we as a committee or a commission understand that education is probably the most important thing for us to share with our community and with all of you. We understand that there is some misunderstanding of what the commission is in place to help Laconia do, which of course is to assist with maintaining the character as we have it today. Now, again, that does not mean that we are looking to stop any growth in our city. In fact, it's completely opposite. Our goal is to assist with the forward momentum that we see happening all over the city through Lakeport, the Weirs, and here in downtown. The goal is to continue that forward momentum, work very closely with those business owners and assist them in not only keeping their structures or their areas in an appropriate kind of manner to the character of our city as it is, but at the same time helping them to find ways and assist them in ways of certain funding that could be helpful to them in helping them do that. So when I spoke with the business owner today, I asked him some very pointed questions, such as, well, if there was a historic or if you are inside a historic district, what does that do for you? How do you feel about that? And his first reaction was, well, I'm here to help grow the city. You know, I own a couple of buildings and I want to keep doing that. And there's a real strong forward momentum. I don't want to come across any barriers that are going to stop me from moving forward to being able to do that with my businesses. And so I did a little research with that, and having the Historic District Commission in place doesn't actually stop anybody or slow down any processes. After speaking with Dean today, because I don't understand, I'm not a business owner, so I don't own a building. I don't know what those processes are in depth. But after speaking with Dean today, I understand that if you have a building and you are looking to change it in any way, you have to go to the code office and let them know what you want to do. And at that point, somebody in that office takes a peek and says, okay, these things follow the codes and criterias. You don't have to go any further. We can do this for you right here. And sometimes you actually have to go to the planning board or someplace else to make sure that you're, speak to them about this particular thing. It doesn't quite follow the criteria. I said, well, if somebody does that, what's the time frame that they usually have to wait to get into a meeting, to get into, those conversations? He said, you could be up to 45 days, depending on when the request goes in or the permit goes in or whatever it is you're filling out, to the time that the meeting happens and the decision is made and so forth. And I said, well, having the Historic District Commission in there with any criteria that we have, does that extend, or has it always been 45 days, or is it, what does that do? And he stated to me that it's approximately 45 days with or without you. So I let the business owner know that it's, we're not going to extend any of your time by coming to see us if you have to see us. So I think we've come to the conclusion that education is probably really important. And I think that's important for anything in our city council, Heritage Commission, conservation. A lot of people don't really know what they're up against when they're, trying to figure things out and build their businesses. As well, again, there are so many benefits to a historic district commission. I could certainly go through them all, but I think I've given you guys enough paperwork over the time frame to read through. The tax advantages for rehabilitating buildings in historic districts are available here in this city, and you don't even have to be in a historic district to take advantage of those tax advantages here in the city, as well as throughout the state. There are some tax advantages. Historic districts are not adopted to impose hardships on anybody. That's certainly not the case, and we certainly don't feel that way in any way. We really are interested in working with our community leaders, community businessmen and women to continue to build that forward momentum with them. So it's really what I'm here to share again with you, and I hope that I've gotten that through. Does anybody have any questions at this point for anything I can maybe clarify?
I don't, but I'd look to Counselor Littman.
Hey, Tara, thank you for
Hi.
coming tonight. In terms of the public education piece, I think that's an important point. And I know you've said you've talked to some people informally. Can you talk about what has been done to sort of more holistically to put this
To
out there,
educate the community? Sure. We are
the-
currently working.
district
Yeah,
particularly.
absolutely. So we're currently working on a slideshow that we will upload to, I think the commission has a Facebook page. It will definitely be on our connected somehow through the website so that it can go out. We're also going to share that with as many organizations and business people as we possibly can. At the same time, we are reaching out through kind of a written postcard. It's in process. So we are working on this educational piece, but we'd like to reach out to the businesses inside the extended district and actually throughout the city as much as we can to introduce who we are. We'd love to be able to welcome the businesses maybe to like an open house or something of that nature, because I think the one-on-one conversation is important. That's when I saw a couple of the people downtown, I just kind of was like, hey, you got 5 minutes? I just have a couple of questions. And light bulbs kind of went off. Oh, well, if that's what it is, or if that's how you would work with us, that's really open for me. I'm welcoming to that. Whereas the original feedback from them was, I'm not sure about that. If that's going to stop my time, or if that's going to, hinder me from moving forward with my business, I don't know that I would be behind something like that. So I think one-on-one conversation with as many business people as we possibly can, or having open communication through email or Facebook or some way like that would be very important. We also are hoping to share that on a lower level, kind of in our educational system, where we speak a little bit to the importance of our city and its history and its heritage and what we have here today in heritage and what we had before in heritage. I mean, I think a lot of you have probably grown up in the area, so I think how important and how varied our heritage here is in the city, and how much more varied it's become. And I think that's, again, like I've said before, our history and our heritage tells the story of the city. When that's all gone, we don't really have much of a story left.
Was there a follow-up, Counselor Littman?
I don't mind if- So I guess in terms of the education and the action, are you interested in doing the education before the council acts, or are you looking for the council to act and then educate?
I think it's a parallel path to take.
Counselor, if you finished?
Yes.
Counselor Susie.
Do you plan on talking to each of the business owners that are in the district and get their feedback?
I'd love to speak with them directly if they're willing to speak. I mean, happily, they are welcome to our meetings.
Have you plan on contacting them and get their feedback and see if this is going to affect them negatively or positively in some way?
I don't think we've made that plan specifically to contact them before or after. Like I said, in process currently, we are looking for a way to reach out to as many of the business owners, just as an overall educational, that had started almost immediately when the commission was put into place. One of the things that was important on top of our list was educating the community on exactly what a historic district commission was and what a historic district was. Even though we'd gone through a year of information here through council and so forth, newspapers, television, not everybody is connected in the same way. And so it was obvious to all of us that are on the commission that education was top priority. Share as much as we can.
And when I look at the map and I see the map of what you're encompassing,
Mhm.
some of the areas I wouldn't know as being historical, like the new buildings across from the parking garage or the parking garage. I don't know if that would fall, to me, what was historical was taken out of that area by that urban renewal program.
That's correct. That there are certainly, and any place else, there's a historic district, whether you go to Portsmouth or you go to Concord or you go you go down to Georgia and Savannah and all those beautiful places. There's certainly going to be, it's a district. It's not an item. It's a district. And so, yes, there will always be some space inside of a district that is not specifically historic. That's absolutely going to happen. But in order to have the district and encompass the places that are, you could say, that some parts of Canal Street are not, but then I could come back and say, well, the Pearly Canal falls underneath all of that, and it's intensely historic and to the city.
Okay.
And it runs all the way across town.
One question, I think this is for Scott. Scott, how does this affect the school that's going to be, wants to take down part of the gym, and wants to do this and that, and this falls within that district?
No.
So let me, with the proposal it does. So is Dean on board? So I'll start to answer, and Dean Trefethen, our planning director, is on Zoom tonight. He can chime in. So my understanding with the proposed expanded district, that once it was posted, that did not necessarily make the proposed parcels subject to the district at that point, like it might if you post changes to a zoning regulation. That kind of puts a freeze on things. When the planning board passed it on for the council to then hold a public hearing and take action, and you've got the authority to modify the district, accept the district, reject the district. You've got all sorts of authority to it when it comes time for a vote. And tonight is just the first step of a request to move it to a public hearing. My understanding is that once it passed the planning board, that kind of includes all of these parcels right now, pending a further action from the council, either through affirmation or through a modification or through a rejection. So any building within the district right now, if they are looking to demo, and it's been specifically when you talked about the former Holy Trinity School, I know that the proposed property owner has been before the Heritage Commission already to discuss it, to try to do some of these meetings that Tara referenced concurrently while they're going through the review process and going to planning board. I believe they are scheduled to meet, and they may have had some informal conversations with the Historic District Commission as well. But the passage of this by the planning board to move it along to the council encapsulates the properties that are presented in the map to you right now, where pending the final outcome, they're kind of, the line has been drawn at that date, at that point. So they are impacted. And I see Dean is up on the screen. So Dean, anything further to add or to correct me if I've misspoken there?
No, what you said is correct, Mr. City Manager. We have been working with the prospective property owner on their actual site plan. They have already received permission from the Heritage Commission for their demo permit. And the next step was going to be planning, and concurrent to that would be the Historic District Commission. Until we have the actual plan, though, there's nothing to present to either board. And our anticipation is that it will be before the Historic District at the end of July, and it'll be before the planning board at the 1st of August.
So Dean, a follow-up and following up on what Tara said earlier, the timing of the Historic District Commission meeting is not lengthening this process. There's a technical review first that the applicant's going through now or July timeframe. And then the reasonable time that they would be on the agenda for planning board is that first meeting in August anyway.
Right, right. So it's happening concurrently, and we do this with other boards as well. People come in with a site plan and they've got some conservation issues. We go to Conservation Commission parallel. It does not add time. It's part of the parallel process where we're going to sometimes 3 boards at once. In this case, it would be to 2 boards at once.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Counselor Hamel.
Scott, where this council purposely the last time on that historic district left that building out. And then was sold before this took place. Wouldn't that be grandfathered?
No, because I think it's within the purview of the Historic District Commission to propose amendments to the district, and this is what they're doing here. So we started off with a very small district, and as they've started meeting and identifying other parcels or ways to capture other historic sections of, in this case, the downtown area of Laconia, it's well within their purview. I think when the council created the Historic District Commission, you created the zone, the parcels, if you will, the land mass. And at the same time, you created the commission. So the commission didn't necessarily exist prior to the creation of the district. So I think that kind of happened concurrently, and now they're looking at what was created. So, and again, I think the council, certainly in some of real estate negotiations, had some information that wasn't necessarily public at that time, and a strong reason for not including, the school into the original mix to it. I do say that I think the applicant has received, as you heard, a positive response from the Heritage Commission on the demo. When you look at the building, the real integrity of the building is the 1920 whatever component of it, and other than changing windows, which I think needs to be just to kind of make it efficient and work with windows that are available today. In my conversations with the applicant, especially on the inside, his intent is to leave as much of the flights and the staircase landings and some of the original, door frames and components on the inside as well, by design. So, but again, right now, because it was passed through the planning board to get to this point, that has identified that building as being in the district. So that's part of the criteria that this applicant will work through. If something were to change at future meetings where this was not part of the district, then it would remove that as a criteria for the applicant at that particular time. I'm not aware of any roadblocks or impediments that he's running into because of that at this point.
Can the council remove that building from the historic district?
You could, so I believe, and Dean, help me out again, but the process tonight is you're going to propose motions and refer to a public hearing and schedule that. You would have the public hearing in 2 weeks, and then you would have an opportunity to vote on the district. And if the council as a body looked to make an amendment to it, it would be within your purview to do it, as well as it would be to accept it as presented or reject it in its entirety or any combination thereof. Dean, is that accurate?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel.
I've had problems with the historic district right along. I voted for that over there and leaving the school out of it. I mean, that made sense. But to encompass the whole downtown area, and I agree with Councilor Susie, I mean, there's not 3/4 of these buildings that are historic in mine, just because it's an old building. I mean, I got a house that's almost 100 years old. It's not historic to anybody. And I think it does put a hardship on people that want to purchase these properties, knowing that not only do they have to go in front of the zoning board, probably the planning board, and now a historical commission to get things approved for the outside. And I remember the original document, I can't remember it word for word, but there was a lot of things in there of what can be done to the outside. Colors have to be approved. Yeah, it's in there. Windows and things that change, can change the appearance of the outside of the building has to go before you.
So, Councilor Hammer, what I would suggest, I don't mean to interrupt, but I hear you loud and clear. We've had this discussion a number of times. I think we can get through this and schedule it for a public hearing. I'm wondering whether we should even push it a little farther into July, because I think more outreach, more discussion. I think there are a lot of people who are stakeholders here that it may take a while for us to get a good understanding of it. But I want to be respectful of you in your position on this, but I think we need a little more time on this before we.
Yeah, that's fine. It's
Is
just
that
that,
okay?
you know, I just want to bring up things that I remember.
Sure.
That'll be a hardship for an owner. And,
Absolutely.
I would not vote for the entire downtown district to be part of a historical.
Sure. Yes, and I.
It's nothing against anybody.
Nope.
Or anything.
Can I?
I mean, you have valid, what I think are valid concerns, and I think it's going to take a little extra work right now. So I would be inclined to sort of push this into July for a public hearing then, and give us a little more time to do our work and think about this a little more thoroughly.
Mr. Mayor, can I have one more question
Please.
with you, please? Is there another document that goes with this that outlines all the details?
Well, one thing I want you to make, I believe that there is, yes. Please pay attention, and I should have made this clear when we get to it, and I will. Page 75 and 76 are relevant, 77 onward are not, except for the map. So we'll get to that, but I think we can get you the additional documentation of what entails a historic district and
Yeah,
what's incumbent upon the building owners.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
Can I ask one more question?
You may.
Thank you. I would just, I guess my question to you all is if you are still not sure of things or so my question to you, Mr. Hamel, would be, what is it that and you don't have to answer me today. I'm happy to have a conversation with you privately. But what is it specifically that you find to be a direct hardship to someone who either is currently a business owner looking to do something different or something else or something added, and as well a direct hardship for someone who is looking to purchase a building? So
what I would say is I think it's a valid question, and
Right.
certainly
And
something that
not
can be
today.
addressed between now and
Yep.
as we work through a public hearing and sort of formalize the proposal. So
Perfect.
that's okay.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tara. Thanks for your work. We're still on number 19? Yes. Oh, hi, Bree. Welcome. Citizens request to comment on current agenda items. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Bree Neal. I own Polish and Proper Barbershop in downtown. I also live in Ward 5. So on the same general subject of the historic overlay district expansion. Remembering that I don't necessarily disagree with the existence of the historic overlay. I, however, do disagree with the extremely vague and blanket verbiage in the ordinance itself. If you take the time to read it, it gives you enough verbiage for justification for almost anything in this entire city that they can make into an historic district if you felt so inclined. And there are things that are not clear, unlike in other zoning ordinances where you have what is permissible, what is not permissible, and what is special exemption. You have black, you have white, and you have gray area. This ordinance is written entirely gray at the whim and will of the Historic Commission, which is no way to govern. People who are going to the district or the commission for permissions need to know ahead of time, without having to have a conversation with the board, what they need for approval. There's nothing in the ordinance currently that clearly defines historic, the character of the city, that is entirely subjective based on who is sitting on that commission. So I would suggest, if you are a big fan of the historic overlay district, including all of downtown, that moving forward, you reword things so that it is not so much of a giant question mark for people who are unfamiliar with opening businesses or owning property in an historic district, because it can scare people away. Thank you.
Thank you, Bree. I would suggest you want to speak, Mr. St. Clair.
Well, yes.
Nice
Well-
tie.
No tie. I was stunned to see all of you here tonight. I had no idea, and I was going to do the Zoom thing, but terrible reception up in Ward 1. Maybe you can work on that. So anyway, it's really nice to see all of you here. I'm sorry?
Keeps the riffraff out.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm glad you're not, I guess you're not voting on this tonight, the historical district. So I'll be very.
All we're doing is scheduling it for a public
Yeah,
hearing.
okay, so I just quickly want to say that, number one, with regards to the school, and I think the city has done a great job with the whole parcel over there, everything that's been done. From what I understand, I don't know, it was somebody I heard say prospective buyer. I thought it was hopefully a buyer, but it's not, this is exactly what we want to see done as citizens, at least most of us, like the Colonial and other buildings. We want these buildings preserved. And when I heard, I think at a planning board meeting, that the buyer is keeping the facade out there, that's what this is all about, is protecting buildings, not necessarily paint, windows, or anything like that. And when people come in, the previous speaker, who I adore, talked about gray areas. You know, as a business owner, as a property owner, everything is gray to me because nothing is black and white. If I come up with an idea, let's look at Motorcycle Week. We come up with different ideas that are not in an ordinance or something like that, and we approach the city or the city departments or the city manager or behind the scenes other people, and we try to come up with different ideas, and maybe they'll fly, maybe they won't. I just don't see anything as being black and white. But I do see as being black and white is the effort here to preserve the buildings we have now in this district. Most of you know the history of Laconia, and especially downtown Laconia, and even other parts of the city. This is our chance to preserve these buildings and work with the potential property owners. If I'm in a business now and I want to do something outside, you know what? I got to come, that's different. I got to come to the planning department. I got to go to code. I got to come to several meetings. Property owners now for Motorcycle Week have to come to technical review board meetings. You know, that, I guess that could be considered a hardship, but those are the rules that the city wisely have in place. Otherwise, it would be a free-for-all. And I get that. I grumble with everybody else, but that's how the city works. So if I'm going to buy property, I know I can know in advance that I got these hurdles I've got to go. I got to go to planning. I got to maybe go to code, whatever. I don't think that's a hardship. I think it's a cost of doing business. And I look at what other cities have done to preserve their history, their heritage, their buildings that cannot be replaced, which we've learned in this city. We've seen buildings that are not going to ever be replaced like they were. So this is an opportunity for the city, like the city so wonderfully did with the Colonial, to have other people do that so the city doesn't have to do it. And I just, so obviously I support this. And I, you know, the education part, Councilor Lippman, is very important. And I know that the Tara and the rest of the commission is going to be doing that. And I think as people realize what this is all about, I really do. I think this will be, most people are going to be very supportive of it. And again, I look over to the school and what's being done there. That's exactly what most of the citizens want to see here in this city. We don't want just things being smashed down and God knows what's being put back up. So that's all I have to say. Thank you. And it is wonderful to be standing before all of you here. It's like being reborn almost. This is just wonderful. So I see a question.
Question.
Councilor Cheney.
I'm disappointed to see you can't afford a 2021 t-shirt. But
Yeah, this is what they look like, Charlie.
Thank you very much. Well, if we'd known that you were all going to be here tonight, we were going to, as Councilor Hamel will tell you. But anyway, we can work on that later.
Would you disagree with the former speaker's contention that eliminating as many gray areas as possible is not a bad thing.
No, I think the more stuff you have to help people understand things, certainly it's not bad, but I just think there's always a gray area, maybe even created by a potential business owner who comes before a board and says, well, this isn't in here and this is what I want to do. Can we change this? Or can we do something like that? And certainly from my experience now in the historical district, like the planning department, and formerly on the Heritage Commission, thank you. Those people, all those members kind of go ebb and flow with different ideas that are brought before them.
And that ebb and flow, for me, adds strength to her argument that we might want to see about tightening up.
Well, that would be up to everybody, I just really came down here to say this overlay, this historical district overlay, is a opportunity not to kick this down the road after something else happens that we would regret to one of our buildings, our few remaining historical buildings. And yes, this zone, and there are a few items that I don't know who brought that up. I think Councilor Susi did. And but that's all stuff that there was a reason for that. And it doesn't mean that something that's in the historical overlay, the historical overlay, people could say, have an agreement and say, you know what, this building, bye-bye, it's okay, or whatever. That can always still happen. I mean,
Charlie, I think I look forward to you coming to the public hearing in about a month or
I
so.
want to be out of here just as bad. So see you guys around. Thank you all very much.
Mayor Steve Laughlin has raised his hand.
Hello, Steve. Welcome. And just for the record, identify yourself and your address or your ward.
Sure. I just had to unmute you because I started talking. For the record, my name is Steve Laughlin and I live at 49 Audrey Lane in Laconia. I tried to get in earlier tonight on agenda item 9, but I couldn't find the raise your hand button, so that's why I'm a little late. The reason I'm here tonight is to comment on the Laconia Police Department budget. Under the best of times, I believe it's a very difficult job to be a police officer. But in these trying times, I believe being a police officer is extremely challenging. I'd like to publicly state that I support all of our law enforcement men and women, and especially those at the Laconia Police Department. With all the challenges they face, I want them to know that they are very much appreciated. It is for that reason I sincerely request that the Laconia City Council fully fund the Laconia Police Department budget as proposed by Chief Matt Canfield for fiscal year 21-22. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve.
Mayor, no other people have raised their hand.
Terrific. Let's move on to item number 20, which is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to start out with a couple of items that are not on your packet. First of all, I'll echo the comments you made, Mr. Mayor, for Motorcycle Week. Excited it's here. I want to give a shout out to your employees.
Well,
Our
we're looking for a
employees,
comment on something. I
We've
just
done a lot of work in the planning stages, have been responsive, have been adaptive as we rolled through some different changes here, and also to all the staff that gets down there and works the event on a daily basis. So it's everything from Public Works, police, fire, our inspectors, our licensing people, public safety folks are down there, food tents and all that type of stuff. So, and a lot of our partners, both in the region and the state. So when we sit down and look at how many departments in the city are actually involved in the planning and then the inspecting and then the safety aspect of Motorcycle Week, it's really almost all of them. So thank them and all they've done already and what they'll do for this next week. I do have an appointment to share with you that I'm making to the Laconia Housing Authority, and I'm pleased to be appointing Kristen Guest to a term that would expire. It's a partial term, and this term will expire in October of 2023. Kristen is a Laconia resident. She's currently completing a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling and working with Lakes Region Mental Health Care and their child and family department. She has prior experience as a police officer, was a school resource officer, and a DARE officer. So in speaking with the executive director of the Housing Authority, Tom Cochran, we felt Kristen would be a great addition to come in and be not so much on the finance end, not so much on the legal end, but really looking at what is it that we can do for our residents who run the gamut from young children all the way on up to senior citizens in terms of their needs and how we integrate into the community. So very excited. She's got about 87 things going on right now, but when you want something done, you find a busy person to ask to do it. And she's full of energy and excitement. And I think she's going to be a great addition to the Housing Authority. And she's ready to go to the first meeting, which is Thursday, I believe. Finally, just a brief update on where we are with the budget. So we had our final 2 budget presentations tonight with the library and the water department. We had our public hearing tonight, of which there wasn't a whole lot of public comment until Mr. Laughlin just chimed in on the police budget. We have a special meeting set up next Monday. So a week from tonight, it's our off night starting at 7 for the sole purpose of general budget discussion. So this is your opportunity to identify what you like in the budget, what you don't, what changes you want to propose in the budget. If we need to bring any department heads back for further questions or clarification, please let me know sooner rather than later. Out of that meeting, we're hoping to just get consensus of any changes that you may have so that we can bring you an amended resolution when it comes time to adopt the budget. And we've got all the way until the end of July, our fourth Monday in July to do that. So some of the items you heard from Glenn Smith last week about amending our grant proposals by some late grants that we might be getting. So those will just be part of some housekeeping items. But certainly if there's proposals that you're looking to amend to the budget, next week is just kind of a general conversation and allowing staff to hear what it is you have to say, and then allowing us to draft something at least as a starting point to kind of get you where there's consensus. And that in no way precludes you from taking additional measures on a night when we do adopt the budget. But we are through with formal presentations at this point, and the ball is in your collective court for next week to lead it, because I don't have an agenda for you other than it's general budget discussion and where you want to go with it. So we are seeing some updated numbers to the legislature on the Senate side and the budget that they've passed. I believe committee of conference, Mayor Hosmer, between the House and the Senate have agreed on H Bill 1, which is more of the numbers side of it. They've still got some work to do on the trailer bill HB 2, which has a lot more moving parts, but at least on where they are with the revenues and the revenue sharing and some of the things that impact the municipality, I think we've got an okay place, assuming that coalition stays together on the HB2 component of it as well. So it's not a done deal yet, and then ultimately it needs to be enrolled and go to the governor for signature there. Again, early indications dealing with just the numbers part of it seem to look positive, that the governor was supportive of the meeting of the minds between the Senate and the House. So I've been around long enough to know that nothing's a done deal until it's signed. So beyond there, I'm not making any further predictions. Going to the financial and operational trends report, that is, I'm going to back up one more thing. We've gotten some guidance from U.S. Treasury further on the America Rescue Plan Act. ARPA is the acronym for that. We've dealt with so many acronyms this year. Some guidance came out. There was some information coming from the state today that the first dollars coming to the state are going to be available sometime over the next week or so, I believe was the date, or less than a week, in which case communities, the state will be putting out information on the application process for states, for communities, municipalities to apply for their allocation of funds. 50% of the money allocated to Laconia would be available within the next 30 days, and the other 50% would be a year ago at this point. There is a webinar that Glenn and I will both be on Wednesday afternoon, put on by the New Hampshire Municipal Association, as well as the Gopher Committee at the state, to talk about not only the process, but the allowable uses for these funds, going forward on it. So we'll get a little bit more clarification both for the process and the allowed uses. Then I will be able to bring back to you at a later point how we may want to recommend backfilling some lost revenues, if that might be appropriate, or other expenditures we can make that meet the intent of the ARPA fund that might be tied into building ventilation and air handling systems or other types of build out beyond revenue. So stay tuned for that, but the funds are coming closer. So now I will refer to the financial and operational trends report that is in your packet, starting on page 69. You can see at the very top, the new construction value from building permits. Again, we roll the building permit year over every year on April 1st, tied in with the Department of Revenue and state law. That's when the DRA year begins, and it runs April 1st to March 31st. So when we calculate our building permit value, we do it on that 12-month cycle. So you can see 2 months into the year, we've got over $14 million in new building permit value on the books here, compared to a little under $3 million both for last year at the same time and the year before that at the same time. So things continue to be busy on larger projects, some smaller projects. It's not all just the big projects that are coming in. There's some houses. Some of the items just anecdotally that don't show up in the building permit report. There are a lot of electrical permits being pulled for everything from people doing solar panels to putting in generators to just upgrading the wiring in their house. There's a lot of small projects. People are taking down decks and adding 3-season porches. So it's not all about the Barton's project or the Lakeport project and the millions of dollars. The electrical permits keep our staff busy with the inspections and issuing them. They don't necessarily add new value in the building permit, world. They don't, by changing out your, upgrading from 100 amp to 200 amp, we don't go and add, a boatload of value to someone's house for doing that, like we wouldn't for siding or new roofing shingles or something. But in addition to what shows up here is just a phenomenal amount of permit activity that is happening across the city, which is very good to see. So further down the page, you got the fire and rescue calls for May. Again, continue to be very strong. Public assistance, we've touched upon this several times as we start to see an unwinding of some of the support programs and the evictions. We might expect some changes there, but so far a lot of these programs have supported folks who've needed assistance in places other than through our welfare department. On the police department, on top of page 70, you can see a significant increase in calls for service, and this includes motor vehicle stops. A couple of lines down on that chart, you can see a 5-fold increase in, and a lot of things you'll hear me say over the next couple of months is this is directly related to COVID. If you think where we were in May of last year, it wasn't the priority of LPD to be pulling people over and engaging people in close contact if they didn't necessarily have to. So a lot more activity is occurring now, and part of that is through the traffic enforcement dedication they've got going on as well. Our property tax collection at the bottom of the page, a little over 99%. That continues to be very strong through May 31st. Bills did go out right at the end of May, and they have a July 1st, thank you, due date. So a couple of weeks left for the next property tax bill. Motor vehicles continues just to crush the numbers, for lack of a better way to do it. And I keep waiting for that number to slow down a little bit, and mostly because you go by the dealerships and they don't have any inventory, and you wonder where people are finding cars to upgrade and do it. But I don't know where they're getting them from, but they are. And as you can see, we're at 97.5% of our target for our budget this year. Last year, on a lower dollar amount, we were at 91%. So we continue to nail that. The overtime numbers, again, in a larger font per Councilor Cheney, are there. Again, these are going to be skewed. And I mentioned a little bit earlier, a lot of the reimbursement programs are going to be having dollars come back into backfill in the general fund. But everything from EMS to fire to police, you've seen some overtime that, again, COVID related, that is driving some of those numbers. But remember, there's reimbursements that we're getting. Top of page 72, again, parks and recreation facility use requests. You look at the last 2 months and we've got over 30 requests to use facilities. Same time a year ago, we were at 11. It all is about the opening up and people getting out and about and some of the restrictions being lifted. You can see the impact revenues at the bottom with a couple of small transfers out. Top of page 73, you can see the trust balances as they stand right now. Boat taxes, again, knocking it out of the park compared to the prior years. We're almost $30,000 ahead, which means more than 30% ahead of the same pace we were last year. A lot of boats being purchased and registered and going on the water here in the Lakes region. And again, you can see the ambulance EMS billing report at the bottom, and you can see how the numbers are starting to trend back from where we were in last March. The COVID hit basically half of March last year, and then April, and then where we are into May again. So trends are getting back up to a more normal stage in our EMS transports and billing. So with that, I will stop and answer any questions anyone may have on this or anything else.
Counselor Haynes.
Scott, what's the state's timeline as far as passing the budget and signing it? Is it one?
I believe the committee of conference had a date of they need to finish their work by the 17th, if I'm correct, and then both chambers need to go and vote on respective bills that the committee of conference has agreed upon by June 24th. And I'll look at the mayor, but those votes are strictly straight up or down. Once they come out of committee of conference, there's no more amendments, there's no more whatever. They go and they vote by the 24th. And then there's a process where it needs to be signed by the Senate President and the Speaker of the House, and the Secretary of State needs to walk these things around and get them. And sometimes they get stuck in people's desk drawers if they like a bill or don't like a bill. So, and then it goes on to the governor. I would expect the budget to be a little bit different. And if there's agreement from both parties, that would move along to his desk relatively quickly. But beyond there, I don't have a firmer time frame than that.
Okay. That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Any other questions to the city manager? Thank you very much, Scott. Very thorough. So moving on to agenda number 21, which is our new business under 21A, which is to amend the city code, chapter 235 zoning, and to update section 21.2 historic overlay district, amending the outline of the district and expanding it to include all of the downtown area. I think what I'd like to do, instead of reading all of this, is move right to the proposed motions. Remember right now that we are moving it to a public hearing. I would also suggest that maybe we move it till the end of July, which should give us ample time to have constituent outreach as well as some stakeholder input. I'll look at you, Councilor Hamel. Do you think it's right in the thick of summer? I realize there may be vacations and things of that, but maybe as a tentative date to open it up for a public hearing?
I don't have a problem with that. The only problem I have is what it's going to do to two property owners that recently purchased property that is now in this overlay. What's it going to do to delay them? Because now I'm hearing August for some kind of meeting with them. I'm speaking of the school right now. I kind of thought he wanted to demo that fairly soon. Is this going to delay him till late fall, early spring? I don't think we have that answer. And now there's a piece of property downtown that was just sold. I don't think he bought that with the knowledge of that was in a historical district. What's that going to do to his plans? So, to me, the sooner we can do this, the better.
I'd like to go sooner.
So if you're looking for clarification, I can't speak to the second property at all. I don't know who's buying it or what they know or don't know. With the former Holy Trinity School property, my understanding, and Dean was on board, this is not going to delay him because he's probably before technical review or minor site plan, one of those at the planning level right now. And he will be on the agenda for August 3rd, I believe is the date. And the planned meeting with the Historic District Commission is in late July. So I don't think this is going to slow up that applicant, and he's well prepared and well versed in working in the city of Laconia. And I think he's in good shape to have his approvals in place through the planning board, which would be the last meeting in the process on that August 3rd date. One other thing, Mr. Mayor, I know we want to point out, when we were putting together this ordinance, we had a cut and paste. So starting on the bottom of page 76 is really where this ordinance ends, with those various map and block and lots. And that's what you would be moving to a public hearing at whatever date tonight. The stuff that continues on 77 and 78 came from the building code that we updated and adopted a few months back. So that was just a cut and paste that somehow stayed into the Word document. So anything on page 77 and 78 is non-germane to what you're voting on. So you'd be voting on the first two pages.
So when we do have the public hearing, or even before, could we have the original paperwork that when we voted on the first historical district overlay of the stipulations of the property?
Absolutely. We can email that to you tomorrow. That's on the city website, and you can get a link, and it's accessible to anybody in the public. It's posted and no secrets. So we can mail you the link tomorrow, but it's on the planning page somewhere.
Thank you. Counselor Lippman.
I'd just like to put this idea out to the council table. I'm generally supportive of having a historical overlay district. I think there's some concerns about it, but would we be better to have the hearing at the next meeting, potentially reject the, and that way we don't tie up the couple of key projects and then move to take public input to perfect it. I'm just concerned about the issues that Councilor Hamill's raising, notwithstanding the assurances that things are okay with the demo. I just soon not be in this position where we're kind of have the uncertainty as to what we're going to do. I mean, I have no issue with us having a public hearing. I'd suggest we have it as soon as possible, and buy some certainty with respect to it, and then work to address the issues that come up in the public hearing, and then adopt something. Just a thought.
I think it's a good thought. Would it be better or worse to entertain a motion to table it?
Oh, my suggestion is, let's schedule the public hearing as soon as practical. Then we would have to, let's hear what the public has to say as soon as possible.
I would agree with that.
I like to hear a lot more from the businesses that are downtown.
If I might, the problem with tabling it is it locks everything.
Yeah.
Right then.
I want to wholeheartedly support Councilor Lippman's suggestion. And beyond where the district is, I hope we spend a little bit of time looking at what they can and can't, more specificity.
What is
about
a historic
what
building?
they're
Hold on one
supposed to
second,
do.
Councilor Welch. Yeah.
No,
Right.
right.
I missed the last thing you said.
More specificity about what they can and can't do. We heard people back some time ago talk about, I don't want them telling me I have to paint my windowsills purple or whatever.
It's in that first document, what they can and can't do.
Right. And I think we should go through that and make sure we've firmed up. So, and in support of Henry's.
So to remove uncertainty, I would agree. I want to remove uncertainty to the potential development of two pieces of property area that I think of off the top of my head that fall within this zone. I think I tend to agree with you. I like that idea better. So.
And I think in the end, we'll get this done faster than if we delay it.
Okay.
And then work on it. So,
Give us a
Councilor
chance
Susie, go ahead. I'm sorry.
As Mr. Burnett, as the chairman of the planning board said, we have to understand and see what we want it to be. What are we looking for the future of the downtown? And make sure that's involved there. I know when I first joined the council, some lady grabbed me off North Main Street. She says, the historic district told me I can't put this doorknob on my door.
It's not true.
And, I'm not sure if that's, she was taking it too far, but I don't know if that document you're talking about goes that deep.
It is fairly detailed, but again, remember right now that there are only four buildings are in the overlay district. and none of them are on North Main Street. So if a lady said, they told me I couldn't do this,
I'm just saying, I remember-
I'm just sharing, but sometimes the story is better than the truth.
gotta remember.
It's the train station, the library, now the Hagan property, and the church. That makes up the district right now.
Does the building behind the library, the one that's on those, used to be the forestry building?
That's
That in
included, that's
there?
included in this proposed
On the new
district,
one.
as is the old Boy Scout shed that's in the
Yeah.
back of it. But nonetheless, I think that's some of the stuff we should be discussing. So I guess I'm inclined to, let's move this along then. I'm just as written then.
I move to schedule the public hearing at our next regular meeting.
So would you like me to go through all this here but instead of reading it to do it formally, or would you just like to jump right to the?
I'd like to waive the reading.
I think, do we still have to have votes as well, though?
I think you
isn't
need
it?
three, I think you need three motions.
Much as
here.
I'd love to step on the gas as well. But we got three motions here. All right. So the first is a motion to move to waive reading of this ordinance in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask all in favor to raise your hand. That's 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. The second motion is to move a first reading of ordinance 2021-235-21.2, expanding the adopted area of the historic overlay district. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing that, I ask everyone to raise their hand who's in favor of it. 5 votes in the affirmative, the opposed. So
He's in favor of scheduling.
are you in favor of
Scheduling.
scheduling? Yes. Okay, 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes 6-0. We good, Cheryl?
That was for the first reading.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So now the third and final motion on this item is to schedule a public hearing on June 28th, 2021, during the regular city council meeting to gather input prior to adoption. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion?
I guess the motion reads adoption. I think it could be any of the discretionary action that we have, right?
So a friendly amendment on that would be to gather input prior to
Vote.
Vote to vote, yeah.
a vote. Fair enough.
And does that make us have to vote that night?
No, just as
No,
it's
but-
prior to vote.
Can we talk about it, what the question here, or do you want to take the vote and then come back to it?
Well, you've had a good idea to get it going in the right
So
direction.
I'm just saying, I
so
think we can
talk.
have the hearing, take the vote that we think is appropriate, and then get to work on,
I think the idea, Bob, was to reject it and then work on it and get a good bill.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Henry.
Yeah. So any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion as amended, 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Thank you, Counselor Littman, for your guidance on that. Good. Okay, moving along to item 21B, the first reading of resolution 2021-07 relative to fiscal year 2021 year-end carry forwards. The end of every fiscal year, staff reviews remaining appropriations and develops requests to carry certain funds into next fiscal year. These requests are intended to serve any of several purposes, including completion of previously budgeted capital projects still pending at year end, completion of emergency or unanticipated projects still pending at year end, allocating unanticipated savings to allow for completion of priority projects, and establishing or replenishing reserves. Council's approval of these requests allows for the continuation of work on these projects or priorities after June 30th, 2021. As these funds have been previously appropriated, there is no fiscal impact to the city. This report was submitted by Glenn Smith, our finance director, and certainly a staff recommendation as the city manager recommends that the city council approve the carry forward request. So this will be a series of 3 motions. Looking for the first one is to waive a reading of this resolution in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hands. 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Second motion is to move a first reading of Resolution 2021-07 relative to fiscal year 2021 year-end carry forwards. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Yes, Counselor. Counselor Hamel, pardon me.
One question, and it's the proposed Iron Man thing, which is the very first one. It's 20,000. I thought during our discussion with the people putting on that agenda for the thing, that we said would fund 14,000, if my recollection is right, as far as that would take care of the dumpsters and things like that, and not the full 20 that they were asking for.
I think they were asking for more than that, actually, and I think we said we would do the in-kind services and we would true up the number at the end of the event. And if we were under 20,000, we would make up the difference. And if we were up to 20,000, whatever was left or nothing would do that. So the council, we don't have to spend it all. I can review the motion, but I believe that's how it read. But this is to identify funds this year because we didn't anticipate putting this into the budget for next year at the time, and we could do it. So I'll firm up the numbers, but I think it was up to 20,000, of which most of it's going to be in kind.
Counselor Littman.
So for next week, Scott, when we have a discussion, can we rely on this as being sort of the final form of potential carry forwards, or there's still more that potentially could be identified?
No, this would be what we're identifying from existing line items. Some of these numbers may end up being a little bit less than this as we tie up the end of the year numbers and maybe some money comes in, but this would be the amount that we'd be looking to carry forward, not to exceed this.
That part of this could be in our deliberations on the budget, correct?
Yes, but this is this year's dollars prior to them lapsing on June 30th.
Right, if we want to carry it forward and repurpose it for a different thing than
Absolutely,
what you
yep.
proposed, that's something we could be thinking about for next
Sure,
week.
you could say, yeah, you could throw it into the mix next week and then you could amend it on the vote for the 28th. Yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on moving a first reading? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Indicate so. 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Third and final motion is a move to schedule a public hearing on June 28th, 2021 during the regular council meeting to gather public input prior to potential adoption. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Item 21C on your agenda, which is the first reading of Resolution 2021-14 relative to authorizing transfer of funds from the general fund to the internal service fund in the amount of $950,000 with funding to be provided by the general fund balance. The Internal Service Fund, created by Council Vote 1998 to account for the financing of fleet acquisition, fleet maintenance, and the purchase of gasoline and diesel fuel. Funding is provided through charges to city departments for services rendered. Analysis shows that for many years, transfers from the general fund have not fully compensated the Internal Service Fund for services provided. This has resulted in a growing obligation on the part of the general fund. As of June 30th, 2020, this obligation totals $1,062,994.43. These funds have been carried in the general fund balance as they accumulate. This results in an artificially inflated fund balance in the general fund. So staff recommends that this situation be remedied by authorizing the transfer of $950,000 from the non-spendable portion of the general fund balance, the Internal Service Fund. Could you just give us a quick briefing on that, please, Scott?
Absolutely. I'll give you the high level details and let Glenn jump in with the low level in the weeds details, if you will. So Glenn presented this last week during his finance budget presentation. As you recall, when the auditors spoke to us back in February, 1st of March, somewhere around there, they had identified that the Internal Service Fund was not billing out enough and not receiving enough revenue for the work and its obligations. and that because a number had grown, that they were putting a hold on a certain amount of our fund balance, and that's the 950,000 that we've identified as non-spendable. So they kind of put a hold and said, this is owed to, ISF. Internally, it's all city money. It's a paper transaction. This cleans it up with dollars existing. It doesn't spend any additional dollars. It just is an accounting transaction. And going forward, Glenn has identified the approach we're taking to make sure that we are on track going forward over the next couple of years to address this problem, as opposed to it being one big hit and the impact all coming in 1 year. It'll be a phased-in approach over a couple of years, but it's something we're going to simplify and amend and correct going forward. So this neatens up a blemish on our balance sheet, if you will, from an auditing perspective. It's a paper transaction. It's not exceeding the tax cap. It's not expending $950,000. It's an accounting transaction that's happening internally. And for more than that, I'll turn to Glenn if you have any other questions.
Any questions? Councilor Littman.
So I guess I just need to get more comfortable, Glenn, with the moving of the 950. Basically, you're just restricting in a form the fund balance associated with the general fund and purposing it for the internal services fund.
That's correct.
Is it because there's an I?
Thank you, Councilor Lippman. Yes, that is correct, except the only thing I would add to that as a nuance is saying that the funds are already restricted, set aside as per our last audit for this very purpose. So by just completing this transaction, what we're doing is taking that obligation off of the general fund books by actually making the transfer.
And so what I heard the manager say, I just want to confirm, there's no additional spending authority by doing that in terms of what can be acquired?
By the internal service fund?
Yeah, in other words.
That is correct. That is correct.
You're not authorizing an appropriation. You're authorizing a payment of a bill from basically the left pocket to the right pocket. And there's no additional spending that happens.
Yeah, the money's going to remain though it doesn't disappear. The money's going to go from right pocket to left pocket, but it's still in your pants, right?
Yes.
There you go.
You're left
Good
to my
way to put
right.
it.
And it loses the designation of non-spendable now because we're paying an IOU, if you will. So it doesn't go away. The money is sitting there. We're not raising it through taxes. We're not spending anything within our checking account, so to speak. We're paying an IOU that's due to the ISF.
So take me out 1 year. The balance, let's just, for round numbers, say it's 950. What's the balance a year from now?
Round numbers.
Round numbers. Hypothetical.
What's in there now is about $1 billion. This brings it down by 950. The plan, though, is that the imbalance that exists, that has existed in the amount the general fund gives to the ISF, it still exists, but we're bringing that down year by year over the next 4 years. So what we'll see is this probably head up into maybe about $200,000-$300,000 and then come back down again. Because what we don't want to do is hit the general fund with this on an operating basis all in 1 year, because that would have an impact on the budget.
But the 950 that's transferred to the internal services fund, you're saying is it's going to be depleted over time in terms of fulfilling the requirements, or are you saying it's filling a hole that already existed that
it's filling a hole that already existed. So in past budgets, there's been an appropriation in the budget. The general fund owes the internal service fund a certain amount of money. When that didn't get transferred over, as far as the auditors are concerned, it got put into a reserve to someday pay to the internal service fund. Today's that day.
Right.
And we're just doing that paper
But
transaction.
we've already paid the bills for the people to do the work and bought
Absolutely.
the equipment and all that. So-
Absolutely. And I will just say to something you had said earlier, this has absolutely no impact on the budget for the internal service fund that you'll be voting on probably next month, as that is presented to you and the other public hearing tonight. That's completely unchanged as a result of this transaction.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So if people are satisfied with that level of information, I guess we can move on to the motions. First one being a motion to move and waive a reading of the resolution in its entirety and read by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please raise your hand. It's 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Second motion, which is to move a first reading of Resolution 2021-14 relative to authorizing transfer of funds from the general fund to the internal service fund in the amount of $950,000 with funding to be provided from the general fund balance. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Susie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. And finally, this is a motion to move to schedule a public hearing on June 28th, 2021 during the regular council meeting to gather public input prior to adoption. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Under item 21D, which is a temporary traffic order, 2021-07, which is our 4th of July parade. Thank you, Counselor Felch. A request for a temporary traffic order for the Laconia 4th of July parade to be held on July 4th, 2021 from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. This report was submitted by Amy Lovisic. So looking it over, we'd be looking for a motion to approve temporary traffic order 2021-07 4th of July parade to be held on July 4th, 2021, 4:30 to 6:30. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Hamel. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, I'd ask to raise your hand. That's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Again, thank you, Counselor Felch, for taking the lead in organizing the parade. Under item 21E, which is a request to designate portions of Tower Street a no parking area.
Can I suggest, we keep on stumbling on parking things. If we refer this to committee to take it up first.
Happy to do that if need be. And the committee you'd like to assign this to? Be Public Works. If we were to do so, we can do it. Should we just assign it or ask for a vote right now to assign it, or it can be assigned simply?
You can motion to table and assign it to a Public Works Committee if that's where you'd like to do with it.
Councilor Cheney, go right ahead.
I would ask, excuse me, I agree wholeheartedly that we ought to look at all of these things. This happens to be an existing problem at this time of year in the Weirs. And I'd ask that we pass this one. And as Councilor Lippman suggested, have the committee begin the process of looking. They can always come back to this later and say, no, it should be longer, shorter, left or right. But just to get through this summer season, I would appreciate if we could pass this one.
So you're suggesting a temporary parking restriction?
Yes.
So how would we rephrase this motion here?
I would just assume pass it as is. If the committee decides that it's, like I said, longer or shorter at a subsequent meeting, we can change it. But if we can pass this for tonight, I would appreciate it.
That's fine.
Excuse me.
Has everyone had an opportunity to read the motion itself? Councilor Hamel, you okay? Okay. So the motion that we're looking for right here is a motion to approve the termination of the existing no parking restriction on the southerly side of Tower Street and designate the southerly side from the intersection of Lakeside Avenue to a point 175 feet west of the intersection of Lakeside Avenue and Tower Street, a no parking area. Motion made by Councilor Felch, seconded by Councilor Cheney. Further discussion on this motion right now. Councilor Haynes.
So that's temporary.
I think he's suggesting
I'm
adopting
suggesting we pass it.
and
We
refer
can
it.
amend it.
Oh,
on the
okay.
Committee.
Yep, all right.
This is not temporary.
Okay.
Because
No, I
with
hear
all
you.
due respect, the committee may well take a while to get through all of it. And I just assumed this was in place
Okay.
until such time the committee.
So I guess the question I would have, or the suggestion I'd have for the city manager, is to make sure that we don't lose sight of this concern and we get it scheduled to address in the coming month or so.
Will do.
All of the parking.
So we just adopt it with the referral, adopt it and with a referral to the Public Works Committee for further study.
Okay,
Fine.
that's fine.
So the motion is to adopt this as, with a referral to the Public Works Committee.
Question?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
So that, according to that red line, so it's going from Lakeside to just beyond the old bank.
Just like
correct?
not Veterans Avenue, there's that one.
No, it's before that. It's-
Right.
Remember the old bank, the
Yep.
walk-up bank?
Yep.
It's right in that area. And that always was a no parking area, has been for
Years.
years.
So does the Public Works Director, did he look it up to see if it's listed on the books already? That it might just need
I
to be
I think
signed?
there's some confusion.
Wes?
It's presently on the books is no parking from 9 AM to 3 PM. Basically, it was the old banking hours. So on the weekends and at night, all the motorcycles can park there.
And that's what
So
we'll be
basically, then
enforcing.
We're just changing
No.
the time, not that it's,
We changed the time, we extended it a little bit because the old one ended, the old restrictions ended right at the end of the old bank.
so
So we're taking it up the hill a bit.
But Bob, we enforced it into the nighttime
I
in
understand.
my years. so.
Yeah, but my question is, if it's on the books as no parking now for certain times, why don't we just adjust the time frame? Because it's already no parking.
Well, but because it also extends the length of it a bit. So what we're saying is get rid of the existing no parking ordinance
Make it a
and
little bit longer.
create this new one with a little longer one and permanent or around the clock, no parking.
Right now, you can't do it at 2 o'clock on a Friday, but you could do it 2 o'clock on a Saturday or a Sunday, and it's,
I think it's a safety reason there too.
It's the same thing. You
That's a
delete one
safety
and-
reason because that parking on that side of that road is not healthy.
Okay, good. All right.
Thanks, Wes.
Any further discussion on this? We have we had a motion. This is the further discussion portion. All those in favor of the motion that's on the table, please raise your hand. That's 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Item number 21F, which is a request to set polling hours for the municipal primary and general elections being held on September 14, 2021 and November 2nd, 2021 respectively, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. This was submitted by Cheryl Hebert, our city clerk. We'll be looking for a motion right now to approve the polling hours for the municipal primary and general elections being held September 14th, 2021 and November 2nd, 2021 respectively, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
I'm
Motion-
sorry, Mr. Mayor.
That's okay. You'll be kept after class.
He's having a hot flash. He's having a hot flash.
It's another hot flash. Slide over. Okay, this motion so made by Counselor Hamel, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? Counselor Littman.
Just like to ask the clerk, is there anything that's being currently contemplated that would affect that?
I didn't hear the last part of it. I'm sorry.
Is there something currently in the legislature that would affect those dates and times?
For this current election, no.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Haynes.
I fully support this, but, you know, one of the things that, as a moderator, and I think Councilor Felch will agree with me, is that you're confronted with all these ridiculous, well, and they're not ridiculous, but, you know, Manchester opens at 5 o'clock and somebody else opens at 4:30 and somebody else only meets at 10 o'clock. And, you know, you'll have people standing at the door at 7 o'clock. Well, Manchester opened at 5 o'clock. So, I mean, it is what it is, and we established it, so.
Counselor Felch.
And I will say, we know that this is posted, it goes in the paper. We have the same thing every year where people are running up to the door and we're locking the doors. But it is what it is.
Exactly.
And believe me, I don't want to be there any longer than I have to. I
I'll
also
second
want to
that.
state that this is, as far as the primary, only if we have a primary, correct?
Okay. Okay, any further questions on? No problem at all. Seeing no further discussion requests, all those in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. That's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Item number, I always get worried about this one. Item number 21G, request to sign the unlicensed dog warrant for 2021.
So moved.
Thank you. Second, Counselor Haynes, further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. That's 6 votes affirmative. That motion passes. Under 21H, from this item on the agenda, Counselor Susie will not be participating in any discussion or vote. That he mentioned that to me. I'm not telling you that. You said that to me. Just, I want to make that clear.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. So any further discussion? So the motion on the table is move to reappoint Stacy Susie to act as planning board advisory member to the, oops, that's not right. Now is it? This is a motion to appoint Stacy Susie to act as a permanent planning board member, right?
No, this is the conservation.
No.
It's on the I'm mixed it.
Here's
Sorry.
another one.
I move to reappoint, the motion is a move to reappoint Stacy Susie to act as planning board advisory member to the Conservation Commission to a term expiring at the end of June 2024.
That's the one.
That's right.
All those in favor? 5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes.
Who was the second? Mayor, who was the second on that?
Counselor Haynes.
Thank you.
21I, reappointment of Rob Mora, Assistant Planning Director, as a Commissioner on the Lakes Region Planning Commission to a term expiring on June 20 in 2025. So made by Counselor Hamel, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Number 21J, which is a sublease agreement between hangar owner Laconia Hangar LLC, a limited liability corporation having a principal place of business at 1025 Quaker Highway, Uxbridge, Massachusetts, and Mike Goulian Aviation LLC, a limited liability corporation having a principal place of business at 246 Meadow Road, Plymouth, Massachusetts. Laconia Hangar owns a hangar located at 70 Airport Road, which is the airport property. They desire to sublease space in the hangar to Mike Goulian, who is a Cirrus owner and flight instructor. So at a meeting of the Laconia Airport Authority on May 20th, 2021, authorized by Andrew Hosmer to sign the agreement as chair. The Laconia Airport Authority is seeking approval from the City Council for Andrew Hosmer, me, to sign the agreement as mayor. So I'll be just looking for a motion to move to have Andrew Hosmer, mayor of the city of Laconia, sign the sublease agreement between Laconia Hangar LLC and Mike Goulian Aviation LLC. So made by Councilor Felch, seconded by Councilor Hamel. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. 21K, request to approve a tentative agreement between the City of Laconia and the Laconia Police Officers Association for a period from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2021. City Council has been briefed on the terms of the tentative agreement prior to this evening's meeting. Right now, I'll be looking for a motion to move that the City Council approve the tentative agreement between the City of Laconia and the Laconia Police Officers Association for the period from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2021.
Mr. Mayor, that should be 2022. on the last
22,
one.
yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. Yes, thank you for the
Mr.
pickup on
Mayor,
that.
I vote to, I make a motion to reject the contract on the basis of cost.
So the motion, we do not have a first or a second on the proposed motion, but another motion brought by Councilor Littman is to reject the proposed contract, seconded by Councilor Hamel based on cost. Is this a roll call vote? Does it make a difference? Are we doing roll call votes?
Would not require a roll call. You're all present, so you can
Yeah,
do it
right.
and vote on this.
See who raising his-
Is there any further discussion on the proposed motion? Seeing none, I'd ask those in favor of this motion to please raise your hands. That's 6 votes in the affirmative to reject the contract as proposed. That brings us along to no further items on the agenda. I move to adjourn the city council meeting at 9:10 PM.